Oh, shh. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to SADS Facebook Live, episode number 69. For all of you who've been with us from the very beginning, it's great to get to be with you again on this second to last Friday of the month. We have one more of July. I'm Mike Ackerman, genetic cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and director of its Winland Smith Rice Genetic Heart Rhythm Clinic and the research component, the Winland Smith Rice Sudden Death Genomics Laboratory. Today, I'm here on behalf of the SADS Foundation, again, the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation, and on behalf of its CEO, Alice Laura, and myself, the president of the board. We're so glad that you're joining us. Today is a day of celebration for the SADS Foundation. Each year, we recognize the next generations, the best of the best, with the Young Investigator Award competition and the winners. And today, we'll be having Dr. Prince Knackrell, who he joined me not too long ago for one of our recent programs from Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. And Prince will lead the celebration with sharing with all of you who are this year's winners in the basic translational research category for genetic heart diseases and in the clinical research category. And can't wait for you to get to meet these two very talented and young, as I once was, winners. So we're going to get going. We are in and continue to be in the pandemic, the one called COVID-19. Worldwide, we're approaching 193 million cases. We've crossed for a week now 4 million tragic deaths. In the United States, over 34 million cases, 610,000 deaths. And for one of my colleagues, Dr. Rachel Neves, who's joining me from Sao Paulo, Brazil, I think of their country as not as large of a country, and yet over 500,000 deaths already. So do your part. If you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. My goodness, get vaccinated. The vaccines work. I got the Pfizer. My wife got the Moderna. My kids are split down the middle as to which ones they got. Which one should you get? Yes, whichever one. They work. The Delta strain is wreaking havoc across the globe. Get the vaccine. It works against the Delta strain. And in a recent study down in Florida, 99% of the hospitalized patients with COVID-19 shared one thing in common: all unvaccinated. So everybody do our part. We want to get traveling again. I want to get flying out of this country again, as many of you want to be free again. So everybody do your part. That's enough said on that. What we'll be doing next, and for those of you who have come online, I can't wait to see your comments and questions. Start thinking of your questions, because after the announcements and the Young Investigator Award recipients are mentioned and interviewed, then we will have the rest of the time together with you. So get ready with your questions. Let me know who's here. But for now, Aaron's going to bring up a dear friend of mine, Dr. Prince Knackrell from Vanderbilt University, who chaired the deliberations for this year's SADS Young Investigator Award winners. So here's Prince. Yeah, I love doing that, Prince, because Erin's just the mastress at this. She's amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. And it's great to see you again. And I'm really excited because I'll see you in person next week at our annual Heart Rhythm Society meeting in Boston. So really excited about that.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you there. And today I don't get an interview, and I really enjoyed our conversation together the last time, but I do want to thank you for chairing this year's competition. And if you just let our SADS Facebook Live and SADS community, whichever social media platform they're joining us on, get a feel of what this Young Investigator Award competition is all about. So take it away. It's all yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'd like to, again, thank the SADS Foundation for sponsoring this award. This is, I believe, the 14th consecutive year that the SADS Foundation has funded this award. And it is really an award that's given to the best and the brightest young investigators working in the field of channelopathy. And that's true across the world. You'll see that the winners this year come from all over the place, and they have for like I said, the past 14 years. And so I'd like to go ahead and start with the announcement of the winner for the Clinical Translational Science Award. There were actually 7 different applicants to this category this year, which is one of the highest number of applicants we've had every year. And as Mike said, I sort of oversee the grading, although I don't do any of the grading myself. But I did have one of the senior investigators who does the grading every year mentioned that this year, really all the applicants were very strong. And so at some point, Aaron will share a link where you can see all the different applicants and all the different labs that they've come from. So I would encourage you all to go visit that at some point. But without further ado, I'd like to announce the 2021 winner of the SADS Quartz K Cleveland Young Investigator Award for Clinical and Translational Research. And the winner is Puck J. Peltenberg with her sponsor, Arthur Wilde from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Here they are with a room full of supporters. Hello, Puck and Arthur et al. It's great to see everybody. And thank you again for all the work that, of course, Arthur's entire career has been dedicated to channelopathy research and has done a great job. And Puck is one of the rising stars in our field as well. Puck, could you tell us a little bit about what you've done so far, what you're planning as you move forward in your career?
Thank you, Prince. And first of all, thank you very much for this great award. It really motivates me to keep going in this field of research. I started my research career during my master in medicine, my master thesis, and afterwards I started a PhD in cardiac arrhythmias. And for this research project, I focused on CPVT. And it's a really intriguing subject, and I hope to continue doing this type of research, but also work in the field as a clinician, pediatrician, but we'll see about that in the future. But thank you very much for the award.
Well, that's great. And again, thank you for the work you've done. I've of course met you before and known about your work and all the great work that you're doing with the large international CPVT registry with Arthur Wilde. So thank you and congratulations. All right, and now without further ado, we will move on to the winner in the basic science category. Again, there were 7 applicants to this category, all of them very strong, so it was very difficult deliberation. But I'm happy to announce that the winner of the 2021 Young Investigator Award for Basic Science is Stephen Dotzler, with his mentor Mike Ackerman, a name that's very familiar to many of you. Yes, congratulations, Stephen. And this paper has been published, Suppression Replacement KCNQ1 Gene Therapy for Type 1 Long QT Syndrome. I've read this paper. It's really remarkable. So, Stephen, tell us a little bit about the project and about yourself and where you are right now.
Yeah, so thank you, Prince. And I'm really happy to be here on this wonderful summer Friday. And I'm so happy and gracious, humbled to receive such a prestigious award. And again, like Puck said, very motivating to help continue a career in research. I'm 28 years old, grew up in a small rural town in Minnesota. And for anyone that's not from the United States, that's in central northern United States.
We can tell from your accent, by the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've been Minnesota born and raised, went to college here, and now in the MD PhD program at Mayo Clinic. And so worked with Dr. Michael Ackerman for the PhD, who just finished that. And this project has really been an ongoing for my entire thesis, this KCNQ1 gene therapy, kind of involving 2 different arms, a suppression arm to remove all endogenous mutant and wild type KCNQ1, and then replace it with a healthy copy of the same gene. So kind of a unique spin on gene therapy, and we're really excited to see where it's moving forward. It was an amazing thesis project, and so hopefully, steps down the line that it eventually could make it to a viable therapeutic. That would be the ultimate goal. Yeah, really hoping to stay on staff at Mayo Clinic and do residency here, either in anesthesiology or cardiology, and continue arrhythmia research.
That's great, and it really was a paradigm shifting idea. We've known about gene therapy for a while, but just that concept of suppression replacement is really fascinating. And if it works, it would probably transform our field. So So really excited to look forward to what we see in the future from you and from Puck as well. Mike, as you know, one of the first winners of the SADS Award is now on the executive committee for the PACES Society. So these young rising stars soon move on to become leaders in the field. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what Stephen and Puck do in the future.
Absolutely, and I just want to thank, and Aaron, you can go ahead and bring down Stephen. Stephen, congrats, and also Stephen didn't mention his son is now 39 or 40 days old. So born the day before he defended his PhD. So Stephen's done. Yeah, of course, exactly. But this has been pretty exciting for us at the SADS Foundation, and we want to just thank Courts K. Cleveland Jr. and the endowment proceeds for which recognize this and the winners each year. Prince said it's our 14th year of having a Young Investigator Award from the SADS Foundation, but I think it's the 10th year now of the endowment from this incredibly gracious, generous gift. So thanks to her for providing this. And Prince, for you and all that you've done, and PACES communities, so Pediatric and Adult Congenital EP Society, or PACES for those who don't know that acronym, the research committee who served to review all of these, and there were many this year. Hopefully each year there will be more as a new life is breathed into the next generation who cares about these diseases, Prince, as much as you and I do. So thanks for what you've done. I hope you have a great weekend.
Absolutely, and I'll see you next week.
That sounds great. And Aaron, I don't know if the Amsterdam gang is still there and still on, or if they bolted, but if they are on, feel free to bring them back. Otherwise, give me the yes. Hey. So this celebration, I have to tell Arthur, reminds me of us at a different time at a different pub when you were winning until all of a sudden you weren't. I don't know. I'm having a flashback memory, Arthur. Any comment?
Was that
San Francisco 2 years ago?
That was your party you're referring to?
No, I came up to the top.
Okay, that was in San Francisco. That was my Ajax team. They were playing Tottenham Hotspur, and that was in just the very last 10 seconds that Tottenham Hotspur made their third goal, and it ended 3-3, and therefore we picked up. It was the semi-final of the Champions League in Europe.
Yeah, I'll never forget that moment. So
you were there. We taped it all.
Yeah, we taped. I got my camera out to video the final 10 seconds to watch the Dutch celebration, and it went from the highest of highs to the most extreme pain in the room. And Puck, I'll share you the little video clip of Arthur's expression. As they say, it was a Kodak moment, unfortunately. But congrats to all of you. I thought I would just say hi to you before I start taking all of these questions, and maybe I'll take a peek to see if there's any questions for you. Oh, I do see one. A question here. It says, what's the secret sauce as to why Arthur Wilde and Connie Bazina are so amazing?
I haven't seen that question.
Oh, really? It's here. Honest, it's here. I'll screenshot it if you don't believe me.
Well, the secret is collaboration.
Indeed, and it's been a wonderful run together with you two are two of the finest. And Puck, I am so happy for you and your accomplishment, and for all of those. I can't see everybody else as they're heading backwards down there, so I won't get in the way of the rest of your celebration. But I just wanted to come back on and say congrats, and it's a pretty special thing you have going on over there. And I just, for one, am glad to have you all as colleagues, but far more importantly than colleagues, as dear friends. So take care. Have a wonderful celebration tonight and a great weekend.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye-bye.
So we are so excited on behalf of the SADS Foundation for this. It excites people like Arthur Wilda and me and Prince and others to see that the next generation of investigators are excited about your genetic heart conditions, want to make a difference, want their careers to matter for the sake of you all. So congrats to them. Congrats to Stephen. I'm obviously biased with Stephen, a really special person on my team and in my life. And I think of him and his wife and their new son as they continue into this new chapter. Well, questions. The questions have started coming in. I see some familiar faces, and I'm just going to go to the top of the screen and work my way down. Chrissy's saying, I'm scheduled to go back to the office soon and concerned about doing that. Should you stay home from work a bit longer? You know, this whole return to work, all I can say, it's a really good question, Chrissy, is a couple things that I always remind all of my genetic heart patients. First, your genetic heart condition does not make you a high-risk individual for a COVID-19 bad outcome. We've said that from the very beginning, even before we saw true data, but based upon what we knew of the virus, what we knew of its sequelae, what we know of your heart conditions, that we weren't anticipating a bad interaction where we would make you high risk, whereas we quickly learned that there were certain things that would make you high risk. Being old, having obesity, having hypertension, having diabetes, that if you had those health conditions, then you would be at higher risk. Thankfully, having long QT, Brugada, CPVT, ARVC, HCM doesn't make you at high risk. Even hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or HCM, where we thought that given that the ACE2 receptor, which the virus actually hijacks to steal entry into the heart muscle, is increased in patients with HCM, we thought maybe there would be an increased signal of risk, but pleasantly, there has not been. So that's been good news. So in terms of going back to work, I would say if you're vaccinated, go back to work. Do whatever precautionary measures you need to do, but I would not be staying away from work because of long QT, Brugada, CPVT. I never left work. I've always been at work. And so in that sense, I would view my risk of COVID-19 and your risk of COVID-19 to be exactly the same. Alana has a great question from Houston about an update on COVID-19 vaccine and SADS conditions. So, and particularly with reference to her 13-year-old son with LQT1. She's read about the myocarditis in teenage boys and getting the vaccine, and so wondering about her son. I would say here, Lana, this is a really good question. There has been a lot of noise out there about the vaccine, a lot of hesitancy. A lot of people are to blame. I'm very disappointed overall in seeing, just like over a year ago, this drug called hydroxychloroquine turned into the blue pill, red pill craziness. Now we're seeing the vaccine the last 6 months becoming the blue vaccine, red vaccine. What I mean for those who aren't in the United States, incredibly politicized. And so what I can tell you about some of the myth busts that we need to do is, one of the myth busters is that this vaccine has been developed too quickly, not studied long enough. What if there's going to be all kinds of things? And really, the reason why this vaccine, which will go down in history as one of the greatest medical scientific developments, came so fast is because it was built on year after year after year of incremental advances for the last decade plus, where it all came together in really an amazing way with the right scientific discoveries discovered over these last 10 years. So I feel completely confident of the vaccine. I'm biased towards a preference to the mRNA technology base, that is the Moderna or the Pfizer. As I mentioned, I got the Pfizer. My wife got the Moderna. My kids have gotten the Pfizer. So if I had a 13-year-old son, my youngest is 18. If I had if I had a 13-year-old, I would be getting that. And if my 13-year-old was a boy, as 3 of my children are, I know what you're mentioning about myocarditis. That is a true signal, but it's truly rare. It's about 1 in 5,000 dose exposures. Of those teenage associated, vaccine associated myocarditis, they have mostly been very mild, non-hospitalized cases, almost all of them. There are a few exceptions. So the chances of your teenage son getting a vaccine associated myocarditis that lands him in the hospital in the ICU is about a 1 in 40 million chance. 1 in 40 million chance. So for me, I look at that and I think it's quite easy to proceed and get the vaccine. And so hopefully that gives a helpful perspective for you on that. Scrolling down, here's a great one from Dean. Let me read it and we'll go. Your daughter is 1 year old. Congrats. My granddaughter's a year and a half. And your daughter has type 1 long QT syndrome and a QTC of 500. You want her to have a rich, active life. Should you let her go swimming or do sports or simply hold off? I don't know where the line is. It's a balancing act. Great question, Dean. And I'm really excited about the answer to this. Next week, coming out in one of the highest prestigious journals, if you will, in cardiology, the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, we have a culmination of the first 20 years of my practice in the Windland Smith Rice Genetic Heart Rhythm Clinic at Mayo Clinic, where we describe what has been our experience with athletes with genetic heart conditions, mostly long QT syndrome, where we have helped enable them to stay and play and stay doing what they love doing. It's been one of the most exciting aspects of my career, seeing that through this work, we have caused a complete shift of thinking, So for example, Dean, when I started on staff in 2000, the law of the land, or the code of the universe was essentially, if in doubt, kick them out. And I fundamentally rejected that 2 decades ago and said, that doesn't make any sense to me. We have got to be able to do better than this. The goal cannot be just to keep our patients alive. The goal must be to help them live and thrive. And that live and thrive mantra is one that we then adopted at the SADS Foundation as what would be our goal for every one of our families and patients who have a SADS conditions, is not to just live, but to live and thrive. And for some families, thriving is sports, athletes, competition, thrill of victory, agony of defeat. And so we have had a long-standing history of supporting athletes with long QT syndrome. And all I can tell you is 20 years, nearly 700 athletes under my watch. We have had 0 deaths. We have had some events, non-lethal events, and we have had our long QT athletes pursue their highest of levels. In fact, believe it or not, we have an LQT1 swimmer who is well on her way with a goal of making it to Olympics 2024, competing in Paris, France. And I can't wait to watch her, not if she reaches that goal, but when she reaches that goal. So I would not be afraid. There's some careful things to do, but in general, I would not fear the idea of your child doing sports that he or she will come to love. So best wishes with that. And now Debbie has type 1 long QT syndrome. Today is an LQT1 day, it looks like. Beta blockers, never a symptom. Tracking swimming can be trigger, so should always have a buddy. does simply sitting at the pool on the steps increase the risk? Sounds like you're in hot Texas summers. Well, the swimming link, and indeed, there is a link in the undiagnosed and untreated LQT1 patient where there's something about swimming that's more agitating to the heart rhythm system, more unstabilizing or unsettling than equivalent levels of aerobic energy delivered on dry land. We don't know if that is to do with the way you breathe when you're in the water, the breath holding, the way that there is essentially for the same level of aerobics, your heart rate while swimming is less than slower than what your heart rate would be running around the track. Whether that has something to do with it, whether it might be the cold water on the neck and the breath holding and the level of heart rate, what exactly it is, but there is no doubt about it, some increased triggering effect of the activity of swimming in people with LQT1. It's not just sitting by the pool. So don't worry about the sitting by the pool. I think it's more jumping off of the dock into cold water that could be triggering a reflex. That might be it. We've seen it in some of our kids who have done intentional breath holding as they swim the entire length of the pool and then come back. And so we would have our swimmers not do that kind of breath holding swimming workout. But do I let our long QT patients, even LQT1, swim? If it's passion, if it's oxygen, the answer is yes, I do. And in some ways, I've made the argument that I think our swimming athletes have a better safety plan than, say, for example, my cross-country ski athletes or downhill skiing in terms of the potential rescue with an external defibrillator. Now, we do have the automatic external defibrillator as part of the safety plan for every one of our long QT athletes. And happy to say that in 20 years, we have actually never had a treated and diagnosed athlete need an AED rescue shock. So a great question, Debbie. Julie has a question, and shifting from long QT to CPVT, and any thoughts about sports and CPVT. Well, we published that as well, Julie. We had our early experience with our athletes with CPVT, not as many as long QT, but we showed then when we've published it almost a decade ago, and now as we will show next week, a very low event rate. Not zero, higher than in long QT syndrome, but still one in which we've had our athletes with CPVT stay athletes. Now, having said that, we must be on our A game with a CPVT athletes treatment program. For that athlete with CPVT who wants to stay an athlete in our program, that person will almost always be protected with triple therapy. Left cardiac sympathetic denervation, beta blocker, Nadolol, and flecainide. Maybe that will change as there's a new drug in development for CPVT, and hopefully we'll have some good news about that in the next 2 to 3 years. But for now, our CPVT athletes who are thriving at high levels are under triple therapy protection. Lynn's asking about a good place to find info about CPVT that's not written for cardiologists. A great question, Lynn. I think what you can do is reach out to the SADS Foundation, go to our website, www.sads.org, or if you prefer just consciously and emotionally to go to our different website, same one, different name, www.stopsads.org, because that's really our intent and expectation is to stop this and certainly stop SADS triggered events from happening. Anyway, the same website, go there, you'll be able to click on a link about CPVT. And look forward to learning about your stress test, and your evaluation, I trust, will go very well. Then a shout out again to Puck on her achievement, and then Lana, you're welcome. So I just skipped a little bit too far. Oh, great. Great question, Kimberly. Can you talk about antibiotics and dental work? Do we need it for long QT? No, you don't. So this is not meaning our genetic heart conditions, long QT, CPVT, uh, any of them, Brugada, any of them, where you need what is called SBE prophylaxis and dental work or antibiotics before dental work. That's for different kinds of structural heart abnormalities where you do need to take the antibiotics. But for our genetic heart conditions, no need of antibiotics before dental work or any other work for that matter. Oh, this is a really interesting question, Sonia. Again, our program and Arthur Wilda, who you saw just a little bit ago, has advanced this. And the question is, somebody's in the CPVT group has asked how many people were clumsy. Around 11 people are either diagnosed with low muscle tone. Do we think this is something worth researching? Good question. Not sure if there's a true connection with clumsiness. I kind of doubt it, because if you think of the problem in CPVT, that of mutations in the RYR2 encoded ryanodine receptor, that ryanodine receptor is primarily in cardiac muscle and in the brain, not in skeletal muscle. The RYR1 receptor encoded by the RYR1 gene is in the skeletal muscle. One of the things that we have seen, though, is about 10% of our CPVT patients who have CPVT because of RYR2 mutations have some level of learning difficulties, learning disabilities, developmental delays, and that may be related to the properties of the RYR2 in the brain. And so we and others are trying to do more work on that to better understand what may or may not be the signal of a mild, most of them mild, very few severe, some of learning disability. About the next question is about the if in doubt, kick them out policy applies to medical conditions with military. 10.5 years. Yeah, that's a really interesting one in the military. We're trying, so it is hard. The military often will look to the sports guidelines as a comparison and as a guide for what health conditions are fit for duty. The bar for the military is set even higher because they have this requirement of world WWD, worldwide deployability. And worldwide deployability usually entails not needing to be on any treatment. And so the problem there becomes, if our long QT CPVT patients are needing to be on daily beta blocker or daily medications, then so often the military deems them not worldwide deployable. But I think this is slowly changing. I have a very, very highly decorated Navy SEAL type gentleman who's been serving in our military, who has one of these genetic heart conditions, who continues to serve incredibly well. Maybe that's different, discovered after he was already invested in and trained versus the screening approaches. But I think in time, we're going to see a better understanding and a better acceptability, having those who want to serve our countries not be disqualified just because they have one of these conditions. But we're working on that. But right now, the militaries are able to pick the fittest of the fittest because there's not a lack of them raising their hand saying, I want to serve. I think if that changed, then they would probably be loosening the criteria. But it is harder to get in. We have some success, but not as much success, honestly, as we do in getting our athletes allowed to play at the highest levels of collegiate sports. And now, even as athletes with these conditions have been playing for 10 plus years, we have many young kids becoming young adults who have gotten really good at their sport. And now the professional ranks of many sports are now have individuals with our family's conditions, the SADS conditions, represented in that professional league. Sally's question is another long QT1. So LQT1s today, not totally surprising, since type 1 long QT syndrome is the most common of the long QT syndromes. About 35% of all long QT families out there are LQT1. And your son had syncope when he was 17. Prior to his diagnosis, the QTC was in the 700s briefly. I'm skeptical of that. I bet it wasn't truly, but his cardiologist recommended watching his heart rate during exercise, keep it below 130. Old school thinking or a good strategy. Totally old school. There's nothing about a 130 threshold where 129 is a safe heart rate and 131 during sport is spooky. So that is what we would call fake news. So I would not put much to that. Now, the reason I express skepticism about the 700s is that is a very long QT interval. And that would be one where I would expected not just a syncopal episode at age 17, especially in a boy, but a dramatic episode before puberty. So I would bet, if I had to, that QTC number might have been inflated by inclusion of a U wave and things like that. And so I think as long as your son is being carefully risk stratified, appropriately treated, I would not be doing that 130 line in the sand heart rate thing. I never have and have never needed to. So I think that's old school thinking or fake news. We're running down to the bottom, and I think I've gotten through almost every question as we approach the bottom of the list and the top of the hour. I think we have one more, which is perfect timing, and I will give, let's see. Okay, does our long, about an echo. Okay, so the question is, I think from Debbie, is the role of an echocardiogram in these conditions. And so an echocardiogram, as we wrap up today, is a cardiac ultrasound where we look with ultrasound energy at the heart structure. Now, good news is in long QT syndrome, CPVT, and Brugada syndrome, there are almost never any structural abnormalities in the heart. So that's great. So do we need to do an echo? Well, the answer for our program is yes, we do an echo routinely, not every year, most of the time, just one echo just to make sure there are no surprises. Now, that may be changing because we just recently published a really interesting follow-up paper with a new risk factor in long QT syndrome where we use the echo to derive one of the measurements, and that is this thing called electromechanical window, or EMW. And so we use a tool within the echocardiogram to get what's called a Doppler signal to make one particular mechanical measurement of time and compare that measurement, subtract it with the electrical QT interval. And we're learning that electromechanical window may actually contain even more information about risk than just what the electrical QT measurement contains. So we're pretty excited about it. We've been able to advance it all the way from a research-derived measurement to training our sonographers to get that measurement measured accurately and precisely, and to have that actually become a standard clinical measurement that comes with our echocardiograms. And so we're seeing whether or not we can tailor therapy even better, risk stratify even better by incorporating this electromechanical window measurement. And it brings us to the and so Sally just gave me some follow-up about that 700 business and how you've always wondered, and I share your wonderment about that. Well, everyone, it's a treat to get to be with you all, those who have been texting on the chat box with some great questions today. Those of you who I don't even know have been following until I see you in clinic, and then you say, thanks for the SADS Facebook Live program. I've watched every single one of them. So whoever you are, visible or invisible, I hope you're deriving benefit from these programs. As you know, we've shifted to every other week now. And in fact, because of just the timing of the number of Fridays in July, our next SADS Live program will be number 70, and it'll be in 3 weeks on August 13th. And so we will miss you here at SADS. Send us your questions, send us your comments, send us what you would like for programs. Hopefully, I will have a very special speaker and guest who I'll be interviewing. They're all special, but this one will be a really, really good one if I can get that one secured. So until then, stay safe and stay well. Look to us at SADS Foundation. Go to our website, www.sads.org. And when you go to that website, if you have been deriving benefit, feel free to go into the top right corner and you'll see this red thing. I think it's red. I'm colorblind, but I think it's red. It says donate now. So feel free to donate and become part of our life-saving and life-giving mission philanthropically. And if you're not able to, tap on a friend if they have a few coins to do so, and let them know and have them join us. In whichever way, we're here for you, and we look forward to being back with you again in 3 weeks. So join us then on August 13th. Put it on your calendar. I'll be with you live at 1:20 Central Standard Time. Stay well, everyone.